One of those names really just happens to be one of the best people in our business. He's just a pleasant guy. He's one of the good people for sure. It was years ago. He was dubbed Mr. Met, right? So Thursday is going to be his final updates here on The Fan. Bob Heussler, Bobby Boy, what's happening, kid?
BT and Tiki, it is great to be on with you. And I want to make one thing clear from the outset. This is my last week as a full-timer. I will be in the rotation a little bit. It's not like I'm going to completely disappear, pick up a part-time shift here or there. But for all intents and purposes, Brandon, this is it as far as an everyday presence is concerned.
It's been a palpable presence. I mean, again, the nickname, we know you as Mr. Met. Mm-hmm. We've known you as Mr. Met for well over 2+ decades. I'm curious, Bob. Before we get into this Met Yankee, I know you've been made aware of this conversation we've been having today. About
I saw your tweet. Oh yeah, it got my attention.
Before we get into that, and you'll have plenty of time to get into that. Broadcasting dreams for all of us have different origins. I'm curious, when you were a young guy and you had this crazy dream, I want to speak into a microphone, hopefully make a living if I can be lucky enough to do it. What did you think you could do in this business, and how did the reality meet the dream, or how did it mesh with the dream?
Well, first, I was, I guess for me, Brandon and Tiki, it is actually a combination of what I am. I've always been a radio fan. I grew up, I'm a Brooklyn native, and then grew up in New Jersey, but I've lived in Connecticut now for 45 years. But I'm a New York metropolitan guy, and I grew up listening to the radio. And for me, the radio was two things. It was listening to the Mets and Lindsey and Bob Murphy and Ralph Kiner on the radio. I know it's a cliche, but I was one of those pillow radio, transistor radio, under the pillow kind of kids. I listened to baseball games in the middle of, late at night when I was supposed to be.
So did I, by the way. So did I. Yeah, of course.
And the other thing is that I was a radio fan also of just WABC. I listened to radio all the time. I loved music radio. I loved sports radio. I was a huge baseball fan and a sports fan, and they kind of just came together, Brandon. When I went to college, I was almost drawn like the old moth to flame to the campus radio station. And it wasn't something I thought, okay, this is what I can turn into a career, just something that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it all, the sports fan in me kind of meshed with the radio fan in me. And over time, I realized, okay, you have some capability as far as being a broadcaster.
There you go.
Yeah. What are some of the more memorable? I guess really the most memorable moment of your tenure. It's been a long time, and again, you're not retiring. It's not like you're going off into the woods somewhere and camping for the rest of your life. You're going to be here in and out. But what's been the most memorable moment?
Well, Tiki, I'll say this: arriving at the Fan was a huge moment for me. The fact that I grew up, I told some people recently that I am one of those people who was listening on July 1st, 1987, when the Fan went on the air. I actually have a tape of it. I was a geek.
Wow. Was?
Wow.
Yeah. Was?
I have.
Was?
Yeah, good. Thank you. you actually, that you put me through the ring ropes there, and I deserved it. Yeah, I taped it. And I still have it somewhere. I used to listen to John Sterling do talk radio back in the early 70s.
Wow. What was it? Bob, real quick, what was he like hosting a show?
Brandon, he was easy to agitate. He was entertaining.
I'm sure he was.
I actually called the show a few times. And, John was excitable, let's put it that way, as a talk show host. And so he helped, he created the template, so to speak, but there was no real template for sports radio. The idea, as we all know by now, of the Fan, the 24-hour sports radio 365 days a year was like, what? Are you kidding us?
Yeah, nobody really thought it would work, and really initially it wasn't flourishing right away.
But getting back to the question that Tiki asked me, I being a fan of just the radio medium and a sports fan, well, here they are coming together. So I was certainly on board figuratively from the start. And then when I started at the Fan, it was a thrill for me because one thing I guess you could say as far as my own personal career is concerned, I've pretty much stayed in my lane. I know, okay, this is what you're pretty good at, and do it well. And being an anchor back in those days, it was a much more significant part of the format. It just was. And over time, we know how things have changed. Being an anchor and delivering sports updates. Well, you know what? There are a lot of other ways to get that news. But back then,
You're right.
Yeah.
yeah, and certainly at the beginning, in 1987, and John Minko, of course, was there from the beginning. He makes this point all the time. The updates were the key to the works early on.
It's true.
Because the Fan was competing against sports phone. People want to score.
Stay with us.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And so so much has changed, but I started, and think about this. I never tweet. I use Twitter for information, but I just don't tweet. I never really got into that.
Smart.
Yeah, probably. But I said, you know what? And here's the point I'm about to make. I know May 9th as the day I began at the Fan. Now, I've worked at a lot of radio stations, mainly in Connecticut. I've worked at the Connecticut Radio Network. There have been a number of places I've worked. And I can't tell you the starting date for any of those jobs. But the Fan, I always have remembered it was May 9th. And in that tweet I put out, I made mention of the fact that Ian Eagle was the anchor before me. And I remember Ian riding to my rescue. I had trouble with the printer or something. I was nervous as heck, and he helped me unjam a printer, and the computer was going crazy. Then Howie Rose was on the air, and I'm like, it was Howie, who was big then. I mean, this was before play-by-play, but he was an established personality on the Fan in New York radio. And he was the host, and he welcomed me, very, very cordially and made me feel welcome from the start. But that was a big deal for me, and I remember the date, which is why I said, it's interesting that my last week as a full-timer is coinciding with the start of my 30th year at the Fan. But May 9th, 1993 is a date like, I remember other, anniversaries, family-related in my life. Well, that date has always resonated with me. So that was a big thrill for me, Tiki, and I've had a lot of good play-by-play moments in basketball. I've had many years with Fairfield basketball, as Brandon knows, as a Marist guy. We've had talks about that. I've had some memorable calls there. I did UConn basketball in the late 80s and early 90s and had a moment with them with a play that's called The Shot with Scott Burrell throwing a long pass to Tate George, and he knocks down a shot, so that's a great memory. But my real substantive memories in radio will always, it's always revolve around FAM.
I mean, listen, as you're saying, we're talking to Bob Heussler. So Thursday, not his final update in terms of, you'll hear him here and there, as he said before, but in terms of the regular shifts, it's coming to an end after 30 fantastic years of devotion to the best brand in sport. And as you're going through this, I get it, because while I've only been here for 4 months, I feel like the Fan's been part of my DNA since '87 as well.
I heard you the first time you went on the air, Brandon, on the old 1050.
Oh, wow.
Now let me see if I'm actually, you can call me out on this.
Okay.
I believe it was a Sunday afternoon.
It was.
Okay, yeah. I was, I'm one of those, like I said,
hell of a memory.
Wow.
I was popping around the dial, and I heard you, and you were incredibly sincere about how thrilled you were to be on the air doing a talk show for the first time. And it was a real beautiful Sunday afternoon, if my memory
It was.
serves
It was sunny. You're out of your mind. It was. The only thing I didn't know is that they had the worst signal in the business. Nobody would hear me.
1050. The former FAN.
Bo Bob heard
That is
you.
true.
That's all that matters.
That is true. Bobby, before we let you go, and I know everybody's enjoying this too, you got to weigh in. All right, so I laid it out why, as of now, I'm not talking about yesterday or maybe in a month when DeGrom hopefully comes. Right now, the Yankees rotation in totality is stronger than the Mets. Refute, co-sign, whatever you need to do. Go ahead, Bobby.
Well, first that means you're buying into the Nestor Cortez.
That's right.
Yeah.
He is. He's the new Steve Carlton, which I'm not buying. I am not buying into that. You're buying into the fact that Luis Severino is all the way back. I'm not buying into that yet. I think he's a great pitcher, but we need to see it now over the long haul. He needs to run the course. Jordan Montgomery is a nice pitcher. Your classic crafty lefty. But Jameson Taillon, nice pitcher. Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole.
Okay.
The Mets, if you take the 5 pitchers in the Mets rotation right now, and you said to me, and you're a basketball guy, Brandon, and Tiki, you can relate to this too. You play that game. Okay, if I'm going to start a rotation out of those 10 guys, and I want to take 5 guys, because I have 10 to choose with, and I'm going to whittle it down to a list of 5, from that Yankees rotation, I'm taking 1 guy. I'm taking Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting with Scherzer, and I take Cole, then I'm going with Chris Bassett, and I'm going with Cookie Carrasco, and you know what? I am buying into the Tyler McGill. I'm drinking that Kool-Aid.
As you should. I love McGill. No, I like Tyler McGill. But I can now flip it. We could play a different type of basketball game. How about we just play 5-on-5, because then we could attack the weak spot of the 10 guys, and that would be Taijuan Walker.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. Taijuan Walker, remember at this time last year, we were talking about Taijuan Walker as, wow, look at this guy. He's all the way back, all-star number. It wasn't all-star. And so now it's health-related. But that's the same. You can say the same thing about, Severino. And I am certainly going to grant you that we need to see Taijuan Walker get back up to speed. But I'm hoping is that Taijuan Walker can eventually follow the same track as Cookie Carrasco, who also overcame that elbow issue. And now you watch him pitch, and you're like, wow, this is the guy we used to see in Cleveland. And so I'm holding out hope, because Walker, we saw what he's capable of doing last year in the first half. He's got to get healthy again, and if he does, over the long haul, I have no problem with Taijuan Walker being a big part of that Mets rotation.
Well, listen there, Bobby. We've been here 4 months, so I don't really have the latitude to just throw blow-by breaks blow through them like Boomer and Carter. Those other guys have been here forever. So we're going to get the updates. Speaking of updates, we're going to get one here in a little bit. So let us say to you, and I think the fans appreciate this, because you're on social media, but you more read it than write.
That's accurate. Yes.
People don't really get to bump into you that much, but you're one of those voices that's been a part of the fabric, sometimes in the background, sometimes, depending upon the day, more centrally located, for an entire generation, multiple generations of New York sports fans. And you deserve all the platitudes. You are a gentleman. You really are one of the good guys, man. 30 years is phenomenal. I know you'll be back, but in totality, 30 years on a great run with some iconic voices. Great job, Bob.
BT, you can't see somebody blushing on the radio, but I am right now.
Yeah.
But the great thing about our job is, the relationships we create with the listeners and also with people in that newsroom. And being with you 2 guys for all these years has been one of my pleasures.
Well, it's been our pleasure too, Bob. Congrats and good luck. We'll see you around.
Mr. Met.
Thanks for hopping on for a little bit.
Mr. Met.
Take
care, Bob.
Guys.
All
Really
right,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Met. Enjoy those Mets, man. Keep doing it, buddy. Bobby Heussler, everybody. Mr. Met. Love him.